Hey there, Bruce, and welcome back to the demo for Misericorde. I got pretty into it in the last episode, so I'm curious to see where this goes. Obviously, it's going to be left on a hook because it's a demo. We're not going to really, get any resolution, but I'm still curious to see where this goes. So let's carry on, shall we? Oh, that's right. The devil is coming for us, I think. I should have known. I should have known. I should have known. Every sign pointed to something being wrong. That nagging feeling in your gut when you can tell something is amiss. You should listen to it. Every time I acted against it, I've regretted the decision. For example, usually the food I received in here was actually quite nice. I even looked forward to the fish. But once I received some fish on a Sunday that smelt terrible. I was so hungry, but I ate it anyway. I was sick for days, naturally. Do you understand? This is how my life works. I jump in without thought when a moment's hesitation would save me. Like some of the other nuns might have said once upon a time, I never think more than a move ahead. Like a bratty child, I will succumb to every whim, every fleeting desire. I read so much scripture. I lived a blessed life. I knew better. And if I could do it, if I could fall so easily without another soul in that cell, naught but stone and paper in my fingertips, what could I do if I set loose on the wider world? For the next few weeks, I was alone again. I must admit, it stung just a bit. I was really looking forward to reading that play, despite my better judgment. I dutifully continued my work in the meantime, brushing up on scripture, transcribing scripture, and quoting scripture to the odd visitor. I had a few inquiries, but for once I could immediately tell that they weren't who I was waiting for. I'm not sure who they were, nor did I particularly care. I just knew they weren't her. Oh yes, I mentioned the transcription. That was the other half of my work. As well as being a font of wisdom, I helped spread the gospel through writing. I'd copy page after page, book after book. I even did the illumination. I must admit, that was my favourite part. I wasn't particularly good at it, but I was proud of it. Sometimes I'd manage someone opening a book and being moved by the words, but the illumination? That gold leaf I carefully placed. Really inspiring them. Pride. Stupid. Anyway, these books would pile up in my cell until they were collected at the turn of every season by the visiting bishop. When I heard a knock on the door, I assumed it was him. You really? I've not yet finished with Matthew. This is your superior. I'm not here to collect your books. Oh, okay. I very rarely heard from the superior. She would, on rare occasions, deliver important news. I remember her coming to tell me about a war in Spain I couldn't possibly wrap my head around. Now that I think about it, I vaguely remember her informing me that His Holiness Sixtus IV had been confirmed. Stupid. If only I'd remembered that when she was at my window. I need your help with a sensitive matter. Aha, well, that's why I'm here. May I come in? No. No, that's not allowed? I was worried it might come to this. I understand under normal circumstances that would be the case. But I'm the superior. Nobody can rightfully unseal this cell but the bishop who performed my rites. He won't be here for several weeks at least. And I doubt very much that he'd let you in here. But even if he did, I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. I don't think you understand. There are rites. This is a tomb. I am dead to the outside world. A vessel for purest prayer, and a woman has been murdered. My stomach dropped. I made the connection immediately. It couldn't have been. Murdered? Her? The rest of the conversation continued through gritted teeth and hurried whispers. Murder. Under my protection. In these very halls. Who killed her? A stable boy from the nearby village has been blamed. He's currently being held in the hospitalum? The fuck is a hospital? Is that like a hospital? But on suspicion of the act? Why do I have a question mark at the end of that? It will be dealt with accordingly when the time comes. That's part of the New Zealand accent, actually. Putting a question mark at the end of everything. Good, so why do you need my help? Why do you need to open this door? I'm happy to offer any spiritual counsel you require, but if the bishop were to arrive and I had no answer as to why a sister is dead, but you do have an answer. You just said so yourself. No. Mother Superior, do not... I felt helpless, dumbfounded. The door swung outward and I looked upon the first human being I'd seen up close in God only knows how long. Perhaps 2 decades? I had plenty of illustrations of men and women in my illuminated tomes. I'd seen glimpses of hands passing through the squint. I'd occasionally noticed what I thought were people walking around the hills I could see from my window. But now there was a full person in front of me draped in black. She looked weathered, and even though I hadn't gazed upon her face in years and years, I immediately recognized the expression she wore, a deep, gnawing concern. I was too angry to care, however. You... I'm sorry. This is unacceptable. You violated a sacred right. It brings me no pleasure to do so, believe me. But it is vitally important that you leave this cell. At this point, I'd already backed myself up against the far wall, as far away from the door as possible. Stop crying, please. I step away from the window. It was hard to speak through my own ugly sobbing. The superior gently closed the door behind her, as if that would make me feel any better. Any sense of comfort had gone rushing out of the threshold as soon as the seal was broken. She sat on the bed and beckoned for me to do the same. I refused. As you said, I do have an answer for the bishop whenever he arrives, but I am not certain it's the right one. You're not? The young man was indeed found sneaking around the convent the morning after the murder took place, and he had no compelling excuse as to why that would be. But something just doesn't feel right. Everyone agrees it was him. You're not making any sense. Everyone agrees it was him, so that's just it. It's a little odd, don't you think? Every last sister here immediately in agreement that a stable hand, a complete outsider, was responsible. A little convenient, no? I'm earnestly not sure what you're suggesting. Why would they lie? What reason would you have not to trust them? And then she laughed. A single, bitter, hollow wheeze of a laugh. Your being kept in here has made you more naive than I thought. You will learn, I suppose. I very much doubt that. If you think I'm about to throw away a life's work, your sealed cell is exactly why I need your help. You are now the single person I completely trust in this abbey. Every other sister, more or less, has had free run of the place except for you. I need you to join the congregation, to investigate my hunch that something is amiss. You're asking me to spy on people. How dare you? How dare you break into my cell and demand this of me? I won't have it. Please, can you not feel it? There is something wrong in this place. Very wrong. Deep in the walls. I tried to ignore it, tramp it down for so long, and now this? Someone's died, my child. I should have done more to protect her. I could have watched closer. I could have not given up whenever I felt that creeping dread. There is something dark at work here, and I've worked too long and too hard to let a mystery like this bury my abbey's reputation for good. This is my penance. You can help me right a grievous wrong. I don't want to send a potentially innocent young man to die. Catherine wouldn't have wanted that. Catherine. That was her name then. The woman who'd come to talk to me so many times. Catherine. I felt like I'd learned the shape of thing that had shattered, and all of a sudden I felt obligated to put it back together. All right. She'd been deep in thought as I chewed things over. I said, all right. I'll help. Good. Tomorrow you'll join the regular congregation. I'll make sure the other sisters bring you up to speed on the proceedings so you can become one of them as soon as possible. I'm sure I don't need to emphasize this, but just to be clear, you are not to let on what it is you're doing. Won't it be obvious? I waited some time before coming here for that precise reason. But if anyone asks, you are our new chronicler. Chronicler? Yes. That was Catherine's job before... well... and you are clearly a skilled copyist. I've told the sisters that you're a perfect fit for the position and everyone seems amiable. We won't have to spend months upon months hoping a new oblate will be qualified and want the role. And none of the others wanted to be the new chronicler? No, they did not. She stood up and strode towards the door, key in hand. Tomorrow then. I'll send Catherine to escort you to the morning service. But... a small flicker of realization played over her face as she offered a weak smile. With a K. The Catherine you lost was with a C. It's just like the game, Catherine. Catherine with a C and Catherine with a K. She stood on the threshold, her apologetic smile wavering. Well, tomorrow. All I could do was cry. I'd been locked in here for my whole life, and now I was being told to leave my legacy behind. I had been comfortable here, happy with humble servitude, dead to the world but never to myself, peacefully unaware of anything outside the walls of my cell. I had no need to care about trivial, fleeting matters. My life was God's. I was angry at the Superior for breaking down the barrier and tainting my meticulously organised little world. But I was angrier at whoever had taken these conversations from me, whoever had taken that play from me. So that's what I chose to focus on. How I chose to interpret events. Stupid. Interpretation was never how I was taught to process scripture, or anything at all. But I ignored the fact that the Superior was the one who had stepped through the door in lieu of the desire to seek some nebulous form of justice. I took my evening meal from the squint without a word. My head felt like it had been filled with smoke. My eyes watered at the sensation, and I became more aware of my palms than I'd ever been before. I couldn't keep from wiping them against my thigh, incessantly fidgeting before each page turned as I struggled to find some piece of comfort in one of my own books. I couldn't find one. Pathetic, wasn't I? 20-some years old, spent reading scripture to the point where I could feasibly recite it without even glancing at the page, but nothing leapt out of me as I flipped through the tomes. Words barely registered as words. Many people hold a passage or particular psalm to heart. I myself did not. I'd been so immersed in the Bible for so long it was difficult to single out any one piece of text that truly spoke to me at this moment. Usually I would chalk this up to the essence of my position. I had no need for a favourite passage when my life was devoted to all passages. I simply never held one piece of wisdom in higher esteem than any other. A holistic way to think about the book. Until I found myself in need. I tried searching for meaning in the text I'd been copying before the Superior barged in, but the letters might as well have been Greek. I felt sick to my stomach, and racked with worries, guilt and rage. I didn't want to feel anymore. So I tore off my clothes and rolled onto my straw mattress and closed my eyes as tight as I could. I woke up rasping for air through sloshing liquid. Instinctively rolling onto my side, I splattered dark bile and a streak across the mattress onto the floor. I could feel more coming and scrambled to my hands and knees, launching myself out of bed like a wild dog. I tried standing, but couldn't. I heaved more of the vile liquid onto the stone floor with a horrible gurgle. Weakly, I pulled myself up using the chair that served the writing desk across from the bed, but not before retching again. Streaks of bile flew across the copy of Matthew the First I'd been inscribing, still open on the reading desk, or Matthew 1. I groaned and launched myself on the chair toward the window, hoping to be able to get the rest of the foul substance I could still feel bubbling in my throat outside. Skip the nasty details. No, I don't think so. I spent years listening to everything others had to say, and I must admit I'm very much enjoying someone listening to me. You'll permit me this relatively small indulgence. Besides, I lived it, and you're just hearing the story. I'm sure you can manage. I flung open the wooden window cover just in time to heave the last of the toxic bile into the dusk. I leaned my head out for a few moments. I could hear the faint splash of the stuff as it hit the grass below. I panted for a bit, attempting to regain my composure. Eventually I was able to stop wheezing and breathe somewhat normally. You're familiar with the concept of humours, yes? The four elements reside in our bodies, manifested as various fluids. I don't sound so incredulous. I learned a little bit about the world before I took the oath to become an anchorist. The four humours are elements that make up our earthly selves. The balance is very delicate, as I understand, so delicate that practically nobody is perfectly balanced. Blood is one of the humours and determines our sanguinity. Yellow bile is a little nasty. People with a lot of yellow in their system are short-tempered, aggressive. Some would say confident, but I'd say a little mean. There's phlegm too. It naturally generates in old age, but many younger people have an excess of it as well. You can tell because they're wise, calm and reserved. I wouldn't mind having an excess of phlegm, honestly. Ugh. And funny as the word is to say, sadly I'm full of black bile instead. Does that surprise you? I'm joking. Of course it wouldn't surprise you. Black bile determines how melancholic you are. That night, after a whirlwind of horrible news and negative thoughts, I was simply overloaded with black bile. What the fuck is black bile? Is that a thing? Can you throw up black bile? Oh man, if I threw up and it came out black, I would crap my pants and run to the hospital. My poor little body couldn't handle it, and it had to expel some. I suppose I've always had quite a bit of black bile now that I think of it. My hair is black, which is a common sign of someone who is full of the stuff. I've never felt particularly melancholy until that night, however. Being shut away from worldly influences had spared me from ever allowing my humoric balance to colour my emotions. There was no going back after that, sadly. Anyway, shakily I managed to stand up straight again. I hobbled back over to the bed and rummaged around underneath it to find the brush that I'd been given years ago to clean up the occasional ink spill or dropped supper plate, along with the small file I had for washing. It would have to make do scrubbing up the horrid mess I'd made. The cell had its own faucet, mercifully, which dribbled lukewarm water into the bucket that I held with trembling hands. It took far longer than I'd hoped to erase any trace of bile from the flagstone. By the time I finished, my knees and back ached. I should have at least rolled up my habit to provide some cushion for my knees. But I wasn't thinking straight. I was in so much dull pain by the time I stood up that noticing the dirty book on the writing desk was just not something that I could handle. I'm not proud to admit that I practically tore the damn thing from its plinth and stomped over to the window, still nude as anything, to hurl it into the night sky. I must have looked like some crazed Olympian discus thrower. I regretted it instantly. Not only was it a childish thing to do, but I swear I saw someone looking at me. I scurried away from the window as fast as I could. I flung myself onto the bed. With my face buried in my pillow, I scrunched my eyes closed. I could feel what felt like a spike being driven through my head. And I was painfully aware of every bone in my body. I ached. I wailed. And I despaired. And then finally, sleep. The next morning I woke up feeling worse than if I hadn't slept at all. The aches may have subsided somewhat, but the pain that had afflicted my head had merely reduced to a low-level buzz that made every thought take twice as long to finish. I meekly slid out of bed and attempted to wash myself with water from the bucket. Although I had wasted most of it scrubbing up the bile the previous night, I went to toss the excess out the window so I could ask for it to be refilled later. I could still see my copy of Matthew on the ground beneath the window. An embarrassing reminder of last night's behaviour. Halfway through tossing the water out, I remembered the horrible apparition I'd seen outside the night before. That woke me up. I turned away from the window as quickly as I had the night before. Even though there was nothing to see out there in the light of day, I simply didn't want to think about it anymore. Nervously, I slipped on my habit, clipped on my wimple, put on my cowl. The superior told me that somebody, Catherine, would come to collect me before the morning service. Morning service? Ugh. I'd forgotten matins? Are you decent in there? Yes. Good. Just a moment. God, which key was it? Well, look at you. She immediately reached out and yanked on my cowl, adjusting it to suit her liking. You look awful. This won't do. Superior would have my head. I looked up at her, bewildered. Sorry, poor taste. She licked her thumb before pressing it against my forehead and tucking an unruly cowlick under my wimple. I bristled instinctively and pulled away. I was not particularly pleased that my first physical contact in over 20 years was this. Woman rubbing a wet digit across my temple. Hey! I'm just trying to make you presentable. She grabbed my cheeks and peered into my eyes, looking simultaneously deep in thought and maddeningly aloof. After hemming and hawing for a moment, she licked another finger and tucked in the rest of the hair sticking out of my wimple quite rudely. Then, after squeezing and stretching my cheeks a little, she gave them a light, frosty slap. Apparently satisfied, she clapped me on the shoulders and patted down my robe to straighten it. That'll have to do. We're going to have to work on your face, though. It's absolutely colourless. You hit me. It gets the blood flowing, my dear. I knew you were going to be a mess. But I wasn't expecting things to be this bad. This was bewildering. You're Catherine, right? The one and only. And your name is... Hedwig. Adorable. Now, let's get along. The last thing I need is a talking to from the superior. She took a moment to admire her handiwork, eyeing me up and down. And with that, she turned on her heel and began to stride down the hallway. I couldn't follow her. I'd never left the cell. I stood on the threshold. I felt as though I were rocking back and forth on the deck of a ship. I closed my eyes for a moment, perhaps hoping that I'd open them and be back where I was just a few weeks ago. Sheltered, sealed, and content. Are you coming? I savoured a few precious last seconds. Yes, I'm ready now. Alright then. Oh, is that it, is it? No. I'd never seen the hallway outside my cell before. It was quite long, and Catherine was walking briskly towards the end. We have a way to go yet, I'm afraid. Right here, if you please. We passed a set of windows, and with a little statue of the Madonna and Child, we took another turn after that, into a hall equally as long as the one my cell was located in. I caught the briefest glimpse of the cloister out of the window. Up ahead are the dorms where the rest of us live. And the Misericorde on the right, just before those. And then the door next to that is the library. Left at the stairs, just before the dorms. There's a good girl. Oh? My god. I puffed up a little. I know how to use stairs, thank you very much. And stop cursing. That's thrice now I've counted. Go on then, after you. I gingerly put one foot on the first step down. Very good. See? One more. I began to descend the staircase very slowly. I instinctively held my hands out for balance until I felt Catherine firmly grip them and plant them to my sides. You just walk down them normally. I know. This really is precious. I'll race you to the bottom. But she'd already casually strolled down to the landing. She pointed to the staircase that descended to the other way as I wobbled my way down to her. There's more this way. Just so you know. You're being perfectly horrible. Aren't I just? Hurry up. You got places to be and people to meet. We came to a foyer with a door leading out to into the cloister. The sunlight creeping in is simultaneously daunting and enticing. It's a good thing we won't get much heat here. Your skin would cook in the sun. She ushered me through the door, not allowing me the same moment I'd taken leaving the threshold of my cell. The cloister was a rectangle of grass surrounded by stone arches. Passages ran around the grass, each leading to a part of the convent I hadn't been to yet. The sun glinted off what appeared to be a metal crucifix in the middle of the lawn, although... Is this abbey built around St. Gall's plan? I'm just curious about how this place is laid out. What, pray tell, is St. Gall's plan? You know, the standard layout for abbeys. I thought all Benedictine monasteries followed it. They might. I wouldn't know. And, well, I thought that door would be taking us out to the east. But we're facing south. How on earth did you figure that? Have you got a compass hidden somewhere in your frock? Do I? No, it's easy. The sun rises in the east, so that's over there. I pointed left, where I could see the sun's rays creeping over the walls of the cloister. So ahead of us, from this door, would be south. Normally the chapel would be in the northern half of the monastery, or rather the tower would face north, and the nuns or monks would live in the southwest. Goodness, you must have had some very interesting books to read in that cell of yours. Of course, this abbey could just have been built around a Roman plan. That would follow, considering we're Catholics. I ignored this. Fascinating. I'm sure it is to someone. Catherine looked at me, clearly amused by my interest in the layout of a building. I feel as though I'd made a fool of myself. Despite correctly observing something. That was a first. I didn't have much of a chance to feel sorry for myself before I was scared witless by a voice right behind me. As far as I know, this building is supposed to follow the plan of St. Gall. But the builders got a little turned around in a storm. I could have jumped all the way out of my habit then and there. I wheeled around with a yelp. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I'm Sister Margaret. I take it you're the anchoress everyone's been whispering about? That's her. Yes, my name's Hedwig. And, well, not anymore. I mean, my name's still Hedwig, but I'm not an anchoress anymore. Obviously. Isn't she precious? It's nice to meet you. A word of advice. You can still go back to your cell. We could tell the soup that you weren't feeling well. How did she... Oh no, I feel fine. Why would I... Margaret turned her gaze to Catherine, as if to deliver some long-anticipated bad news. She's fixed the portative. Oh, has she now? God, maybe I'll tell her I'm sick today. Stop. Cursing. And, what's a portative? Margaret made a little wiggling gesture with her fingers. A little organ. Which means we'll be singing. More to the point, it means the superior will be singing. I should quite like to hear some liturgical songs, actually. Oh, that's a word for it. I'll certainly make you think about God. It'll make you pray for him to smite the damn organ. That's for sure. Is that what we're going with? I didn't think we decided. We can get our story straight later. She spoke with great humour, but you wouldn't be able to guess it from her face. A little smile crept across her lips as she turned to me again. However, pleasant meeting you. She glided away as silently as she had arrived. Well, hurry up. If we meet many more sisters on the way, we'll never get there. We continued along the path along the cloister toward the chapel. Two women were huddled close to each other outside the large wooden door, speaking in hushed tones. Catherine leaned down to whisper in my ear. The bespectacled one is Eustace. She's very smart but gets a bit mousy sometimes. You'll get along swimmingly. The other is Darcy, who, well, Darcy's very special. I'm quite surprised by how anime looking the characters are. I like it a lot. I'm quite shocked though, because the backgrounds are so like grungy and stuff. Interesting. Darcy, are you sure you're going to be able to sit through service without doing anything? You keep giggling. It's very distracting. Well, that's very anime. Probably because all the stuff I drank before we came here. That much I gathered. Why would you drink anything you've cooked up before service? I thought it might be funny. It might be. A little funny. These two are funny, I like them. That's right. The pair noticed Catherine and I walking past. Darcy gave me a strange little wave where she wiggled each finger individually. Eustace, though, she gave me a strange look I couldn't quite place but didn't appreciate. Was I just fresh out of my cell and unable to comprehend any expression subtler than Catherine's? Or did Eustace seem to dislike me intensely? I guess. I plowed directly into someone walking past Eustace and Darcy in my attempt to keep myself righted. I grabbed a handful of cloak. I tumbled to the floor, nearly dragging the mystery person with me. Thank God I let go on the way down. I looked up at the woman who I'd collided with and realised something. This was what intense dislike looked like. I'm terribly sorry. Angela, I see you've met our newest oblate. Catherine shot me a little smirk as I pulled myself off the ground. This is Hedwig. She's still finding her footing, as you can see. I'm really very, very sorry. Angela said nothing to me. She simply looked me up and down quickly before turning to Catherine. Your door is still broken. Oh, is it now? You told me you would see to getting it fixed 2 weeks ago. Yeah, well, I'm a busy woman, Angela. Not too busy to spend most of your evenings in the Misericorde, I've noticed. Catherine took a step closer to Angela. She was barely 1 inch taller, but she was making quite the effort to make it seem like there was 10 between them. Find anything else interesting in my room, Angie? Or were you just checking the door? Just the same, musk, as always. I didn't even have to check inside, though. It wafted out of the door on its own when I tested the hinges. So diligent. And here I was thinking Darcy's experiments might be more odorous than anything I might hide. Darcy's experiments aren't alive. She idly watched Eustace and Darcy walking past her into the chapel, along with Margaret and several other people I didn't recognise. Yet. As always, my dear sweet Angela, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sure. She shot me another icy look before turning on her heel and heading into the chapel. Time for service. Catherine made a high-pitched little noise that sounded like a mocking sneeze. Angela froze for a moment, but did not turn around before continuing into the hall. Angela is convinced that I'm keeping a cat in my room. She's been bothering me about it for months. Are you? Of course not. They're filthy little things. Alright, with that, I guess we'll wrap this one up here because we're out of time once again. So we got quite a bit of demo to work with, which is nice. I'm very excited to see what happens next. We're out of our cell, begrudgingly. I don't think we want to be out of our cell, but some of these characters seem pretty fun. Darcy and Eustace, you know. Anyway, we'll see what happens next time. Thanks for watching, Brest, and I'll see you in the next one.